and this is throughout the whole country, of a 35% max. And he says it's 41% now. And he thinks it's going to somewhere between 50 and 60%. This is median. This isn't the former 30 hot cities. I mean, what are they going to go up, 65 or 70 or 75? I mean, you know, the 30-year fixed rate right now is 5.45, and that has jumped on the T-bill rate from 3.57 last Wednesday when they took that figure, the 30-year figure. The T-bill rate, which it's based on, moved up from 5.57 to 85, which is around 30 points. When you add 30 points onto 5.45, you get 5.75. And it's very possible you could have a 5.75 30-year fixed up from 4.5 to 3/4 a month ago. And I told all the subscribers, the minute they give you those rates taken, because they're not going to stay there, they'll be gone by June. And they were gone. And so there's so many people who are not going to be able to qualify that there's no hope of the housing market going higher for years and years and years.
And because I think the significant thing is that the interest on the Treasury bills goes up, so the interest on housing mortgages goes up. And as housing mortgage interest goes up, it becomes increasingly difficult for people to have the money or to be able to afford to buy a home, or certainly an expensive home. That's a fair appraisal?
Right, and you got this overhang. These meatheads in the industry of creating houses, they've cut back 80.4% in production of homes, but they got to stop altogether. I mean, you've got a 12-month inventory in used homes. I mean, who are they going to sell them to? They got to be crazy, and we're still short the home builders. And so then we'll switch over to commercial. All that commercial property is going to go back to the banks. Their balance sheets are a disaster as it is. The 19 banks, probably at least 3/4 of them are bankrupt, but they're being kept alive by the Fed because they're members of the Illuminati. You have this, there was another statistic I was going to give you. It just slipped my mind when I got off into that.
Well, certainly
anyway, I'll think of it later. But what's that?
No, you're going to say the gross domestic product. You know, it was has been down. It was down the fourth quarter of last year. It was down the first quarter of this year rather dramatically, and it certainly doesn't look like it's going to do any better for the second quarter this year. In other words, it may not fall as dramatically as it did at the end of at the fourth quarter of last year, but the gross domestic product, which is how they really measure the economy, is certainly almost in a free fall.
It is. And commercial real estate is what I was talking about before. And I did mention those figures already as far as GDP. The commercial real estate, what these banks were doing is that they were, let's say that we came by and we wanted to buy a $1 million building or $100 million, it doesn't make any difference. And we said to the bank, we want to buy that building. And they said, okay, go buy it. Here's the price. They bought the building for the buyers, and they gave them a 5-year loan, interest only, nothing down. I mean, what could they have been thinking of? I mean, did they really want to go bankrupt?
Well, you don't have to worry with one of the major banks because the American taxpayers are going to bail you out. And that's just exactly what we're doing. I mean, we're transferring the wealth of the American taxpayers to the major investment banks who've made all sorts of bad investments, and they should, of course, simply be allowed to go bankrupt. We're talking about trillions of dollars, and it's all going to be transferred from the American taxpayers. Go right ahead, Bob.
So you've got the banks further burdened on their balance sheet, which the Federal Reserve, if we allow it to stay in power, will continue to feed them money which they create out of thin air. And it'll just go on, and it's not only going to be banks and brokerage houses and insurance companies and special companies like Chrysler and GM and AIG. And I mean, are they going to bail all the states out? Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? The madness, absolute madness. And there's no way they can do it, and it's doomed to failure. There is no way that they can get out of this. And anybody who is not putting their house in order and planning for the future, a very, very difficult future, which I think will begin probably in 3 years, which will be similar to what we experienced in the economy in the 1940s and 50s. And for those of you who lived during that time, which Stan and I did, you realize it was very tough times. It was very difficult to get a job or even a decent job. I mean, back in 1970, if you made $10,000 a year, you were making a lot of money. Now, and that was upper middle class. If back in the 50s you were making $3,000 a year, you had a very good job. So these are the kind of things you're going to be facing. That's why you need food and a filter and protection, and you've got to plan for these things. If you've got wealth, you've got to convert it all, I believe all, into gold and silver related assets. I see of no other place where you're safe. Oh, sure, the stock market goes down and runs back up and goes back down again. What good is that? I mean, you're up 50%, you're down 50%, and you get sick to the stomach doing that. But anyway, you have to point toward wealth preservation, and that's what gold and silver are all about.
And I really think, of course, it's a matter of the sleep factor. If you're trying to get in and invest in the stock market and try to ride the stock market up, and then, of course, it's going to turn down, and you're going to stay in it, and you're going to lose. And being in the stock market today is a way to make a small fortune out of a large one. And so the thing to do is you've got to be in something you just don't have to worry about, something that will maintain its value no matter what happens. And we're living, I believe, in very uncertain times, really unparalleled in the history of our nation, going back a long, long ways. But I don't think that the America that we have known in the past is going to exist again, at least during my lifetime or your lifetime. And when we come out of this financial crisis, we will either be in an entirely different society. In other words, we will be living in a fascist dictatorship where everything is mediated by some international organization, or we will simply be a nation where people eke out an existence, but at least they are free. And, of course, of the two, I would far rather have my freedom than have all the wealth in the world. Well, our telephone number is 1-888-24-LIBERTY. 1-888-24-LIBERTY, or here in the Central Coast of California at 464-8295. Our guest is Bob Chapman of the International Forecaster, and we're discussing the tragic situation that exists in the United States today as we move from freedom towards who knows. Well, this is Dr. Stan, our guest Bob Chapman. Our telephone number, 1-888-24-LIBERTY. 1-888-24-LIBERTY or 464-8295. And when the statistics come out every month, they try to convince the American people that things are getting better. Just as in September and October and November and December of last year, they were trying to convince us things were getting worse, which they were, of course. They were getting worse because we believed they were going to get worse. And of course, this created an entire change in the outlook of the people. Now they're trying to manipulate our emotions, get us to invest in the stock market again, go out and buy a new home, get the homes while they're still low. And, of course, this is all manipulation because, of course, we have a long way from the bottom of this market. It's going to go on for a long time. But they're not going to let the American people understand this is all manipulated by the people of great wealth who have a different agenda. because, of course, they really want to create a world government and destroy the value of the sovereignty of our nation and the value of our currency and destroy the wealth of our people. Our number, 1-888-24-LIBERTY, or here on the Central Coast of California, 464-8295.